Hi there. In today's episode, we'll be covering AI, one of the hottest trends and topics nowadays, through an insightful lens from a dear and very special guest here today. I've known her my whole life, and she was the first basically to support me with this podcast, and I'm glad to call her my backbone. She's a PhD holder in Informational Retrieval from the UK. She's got more than 15 years of experience between academia and corporate life, and she's been recently also helping and consulting different organizations when it comes to NLPs, information retrieval, and machine learning. Hi sis.
Hello.
Pleasure having you here today.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine.
I know that today's topic is very intriguing for everyone here in today's world, and I'm happy to be discussing it with you online today. We're all fascinated by the notion of AI, but we don't really know much about it or anything really about it. So I would say let's start by demystifying AI, generative AI, and machine learning.
Okay, so basically the exposure that AI is getting nowadays is not a surprise, but effectively AI goes back or dates back to the 1950s. Alan Turing, he was a famous scientist. He was the first to say, why don't we make the machines smarter? But we didn't have enough resources, we didn't have enough hardware to make the machine capable of actually processing the information. And we did not have sufficient information to let the machine learn enough so it could make some decisions like predicting or like helping us analyzing the data that we have. Because of this expansion in technology from the hardware part and from the data, because we live in the era of data, AI is now possible, machine learning is now possible. And with the generative AI, it is basically allowing the machine to generate whether text, images, or voice. This generation does not come from nowhere. It has to come from a set of information, from a set of data that we actually have. So it's not really creating something new, rather than it is putting some pieces together. We might be under the assumption that we're getting some new information because the way the probability scores were assigned while retrieving the information made it possible to have the output that we see from the generative models that we are dealing with today.
And is machine learning the same as AI?
Actually, AI it's the larger discipline. So
Okay.
Machine learning is a branch of AI. And then we have deep learning, which is a branch of machine learning that relies on neural networks. And generative AI uses deep learning in order to allow the generation of content.
And if we were to take ChatGPT, how does it function? Does it rely on specific language models or what exactly?
Exactly. So ChatGPT and many others, we call them large language models. So the large language models are simply models that understand a natural language, and this is done by providing them with a lot of text from a variety of domains. So they understand, they learn how sentences are actually formed in a given language. And for example, if I say that hello, comma, how are you? This is an example of a sentence. We start by training those models by masking some of the inputs. So we provide hello, how, and then we mask the R, and we ask those language models to predict possibilities. So I might have multiple words that come in line, but R might be the word that has the highest probability simply because it was seen frequently in the language. Okay. So if I want a language model, ChatGPT, to understand Arabic, Spanish, Italian, I have to understand, I have to study, I have to process the language so it could be good enough. That's why we see sometimes that in Arabic, ChatGPT might not be as strong as in English, because Arabic has a lot of challenges. One of them is dialects, because written and spoken Arabic are quite different. So it is really challenging to make language model understand a variety of languages, but we are getting there.
Have you tried ChatGPT with Arabic?
Of course. of course. When it comes to MSA, Modern Standard Arabic, which is the written text, it could perform much better than when we deal with Arabic dialects like Lebanese or the Levantine in general, or if we go towards Gulf dialect, because it depends on the amount of information that was actually provided. So we might not be very satisfied with the result that we get when it comes to dialects as opposed to MSA.
Okay, and have you been a frequent user of this tool? Basically, how do you benefit from it from a personal and professional point of view?
Of course, I think it would be wrong not to use these tools.
Wow, okay.
Yes, because when you say a language model, it is kind of looking for information in a much faster way and in a more natural way. Sometimes when you're using a search engine, like Google, Bing, etc., you might not find the results quite easy because you didn't formulate the query in a very good way that could retrieve the results that you want to. Whereas using these language models, you can input your query in a very natural language. Now, most of the search engines are now integrating language models to make the user experience much more friendly and to get the results much better. So ChatGPT makes it a better way to retrieve information. It has a repository of large information, so you might get what you want easily. Now, if you want to compare in terms of resources or how accurate or correct, whether I can trust it or not, if we look at ChatGPT 3.5, the one that we have been using with OpenAI, we might not get very accurate results sometimes because of the lack of the resources or references that we can extract from GPT 3.5.
What if we tweak the prompt that you're giving to the...
Even if you tweak it, you will have to evaluate whether the information is correct or not, because it is not capable of providing you with references. Whereas the integration of ChatGPT 4 with Bing is a bit better because you get the references or the source of the information that you obtain, and this is something that you can verify whether you are happy with the result or not, but at least you can find the resource online.
Okay, and if we were to compare such thing with Google's Bard, for instance, do you think that today it's competing with it? Does it stand a chance to actually beat it while Google has this huge database of information and resources?
Actually, Google is not the only tech company that is building language models. Everybody is jumping in and providing language models. Meta is one of them as well. So usually when we evaluate those language models, we evaluate them through multiple tasks. So it could be for code generation, it could be for translation, it could be for searching and retrieval, for summarization, text summarization. So in most of the tasks, ChatGPT was found to be better than Bard, and these are published results. So we might have something that is also quite competing with them, like Llama from Meta. And Llama is quite open source, so you have the ability to retrain this language model on specific tasks. And it has a model which has only 7 billion parameters that will allow you to actually use it on your specific machine. Whereas these language models, you would require supercomputers to train them because you don't have the capability.
Which is very costly for businesses.
Exactly. So for businesses, you need to dedicate a lot of money. You need to purchase such supercomputers or at least invest in a cloud solution in order to be able to retrain them.
Okay, and in today's world, we know that there are a lot of like integrations. You mentioned ChatGPT with the Bing. There are a lot of plugins and partnerships that are taking place. For instance, LinkedIn now partnered up with ChatGPT to integrate automation and AI. There are a lot of plugins covering video generation, transcription, SEO even, and content posting on CSMs and whatnot. Do you think this marks the era of endless opportunities in the AI sector, or tough challenges for first businesses on one hand, and second the talents and the people who are trying to look for jobs now and they think that this is coming to an end for them?
Okay, so at the moment, I don't think that AI is going to replace talents, at least not now, because it's still in very early stages. But these tools will save you a lot of time in order to get the task done. So any business, the end target is to make the customers happy, to benefit, to get some income, to increase revenue. And therefore, we need our customers to be happy. And this could happen if we learn the profiles related to the customers. That's why we are integrating the AI models, because they could learn what is actually beneficial to our customer or to our users, what kind of content they are interested in having, how would they engage more if we provide them with a specific content. But again, if we leave it to the language models or to any generative AI model to simply come up with a specific output, that might not be really what we're looking for. People who are creative, the talents that we have in the businesses are very important, because personally, I'm a tech person. So I don't really have the creative part or innovative part related to media. So even if I use these tools to generate something related to media, it might not be straight to the point, or it might not evaluate as something really good from media perspective. Whereas people with such talents, they know how to provide inputs, they know how to form their prompts, and accordingly they could get something, they could leverage their creativity and their knowledge in order to provide something with a much shorter time than they used to spend in order to create such campaigns, videos, audios, or even images.
Super. If we were to dive into the prompts to kind of generate those results, basically, what role do these really play, and how can you demystify them for us?
Yeah, actually, prompt engineering, this is what we call prompt engineering. This is the core interaction with the language models, because it all comes to prompt engineering. How you provide the input to the language model, this is how you will get, or you will benefit the most out of that language model. So we usually have what we call the zero-shot prompt, which means that I simply ask the language model any question.
Okay.
Since this language model was trained on massive amount of information from multiple domains, I might not get the result that I want, because it doesn't have enough context. So as much or as many information that you can actually provide to that language model, the more accurate it's going to be. So you need to give context as much as possible.
Yeah.
This is one. Second, you might have what we call few shots prompts, which means that you formulate your input-output, you give the language model some examples, and accordingly it will respond in the same way that you did. As an example, if you give it in the input, France, Paris, Lebanon, Beirut. And then if you say, for example, Saudi Arabia, then it will automatically know that you are talking about the capital of the country, and the output is going to be the result that you want. The same happens for translation. So if you give the few examples, then they will know what you are actually expecting in the output, and that will give the language model, will make the language model better in terms of answering your question.
And that's how chatbots basically work?